Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I've only been to Japan twice this year. Unfortunately, it was in June and August. Last year I got to go to October and see the leaves change, and that's a much better month.
Cool biz.
I'm going to show you, since a lot of people know what Salesforce is, I thought I would kind of give you an understanding of where our current focus is and what we're trying to do, and also share some lessons on what we've seen in the first 14 years. I've been with the company 9 years, and I joined right after they went public, but I've seen a lot of the growth happen when I was there. And I got to tell you that what Dan said was absolutely right, and that trust is the absolute #1 most important value that you can have as a company when you're in the cloud computing business. When people are putting their data on your servers, they're trusting you that you're not going to lose it, that it's not going to be made available to other people, and that you're going to continue to run. And for some parts of the business, it's interesting because in the sales and the service, it's actually less sensitive. I remember going to sit down with the CIO in Chicago of a big insurance company, and he said, look, we're already a customer, we already trust you with our sales data, but we're getting ready to put more mission critical data on your platform than we have before, and it gets really, really painful now. So you have to be trusted, and part of what Salesforce's success is today is that we've had 14 years of success in keeping the trust of our customers. We're scaling in a big way. We had our first 1 billion transaction day a couple of months ago. We're now somewhere between the number of searches that happen on Google and the number of posts on Facebook on an hourly basis, as far as size is concerned across the service. And we're constantly looking at how do we make the time faster? How do we make the response time faster? How do you do 1 billion transactions in a day, but every transaction averages 250 milliseconds? So 4 transactions a second. And so that your customers feel like it's getting you the response that they really need. Also, multi-tenancy was a big fight that we had in the beginning, and this was something that I have to hand it to Mark and his team, because they stuck by their guns. In the early days of Salesforce, customers would say, we like the idea, but we want to take your software and run it behind our firewall. And here's the contract we're willing to give you. And Mark said, no, I'm sorry. We're a multi-tenant provider. All of our customers run in the same data center. We're not going to do that. We said, well, why don't you let us give you the computers, or buy a set of computers where we're the only company running on that particular set of computers? And Mark said, no, I'm sorry, we don't do it that way. Everybody's in the same area. When you go to Amazon.com, do you have your own set of Amazon.com servers? No, everybody shares the same servers. Everybody's in that same area. It's our job to make sure that we segregate the data, we secure the data, but everybody's in that same pool, right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be open. Any device, data portability, like you said earlier. Android, iOS, all of the major mobile devices. It needs to be. You need it to be flexible. People don't want to get locked in. You heard earlier talk about lock-in. What we want to do is make it so that you can, even when you choose Salesforce, put in other applications of your choice. And you'll see we have the App Exchange that helps to do that. And trust it again, trust. One of the things that I was proud to help create was App Exchange 8 years ago. And that was basically, it was an enterprise application store where you can go and find applications. There's more than 2,000 applications. Now, if you look at iTunes and you look at Apple's App Store, 2,000 applications is nothing. Right? They've got millions of applications. Of course, a lot of these applications are names like Angry Birds, and these weird games that I see on BART all the time with dropping balls on the top of the screen. I don't even know what it is. But these are enterprise class applications. In fact, one of the ladies that ran an MRP company from the 80s and 90s has started a company called Canandy. And Canandy has created an entire ERP system running on the Salesforce platform, right? Full ERP. And I mean, we're not going after SAP in that market yet, but in fact, our partner who is on the App Exchange is able to do a lot of the functionality that you would expect for inventory management, shop floor control and things like that. And those applications, you can simply go to App Exchange, find the application, and install it in your version of Salesforce, right? And so the metadata associated with that application just comes in and it just works. It's pre-integrated, which is part of the other problem with cloud computing, is that the SI partners are not very happy about cloud computing because it's just too easy to integrate, and the size of the contracts are just a little bit too small. So we have more than now 2,000 applications and 2 million customer installs. That's a customer installs 5 apps, that counts as 5 installs. But what we're really seeing is that when it comes to being a CRM company, we were always a CRM company, and our ticker symbol is CRM, and the name of the company is Salesforce. And I remember 10 years ago when I was putting in Salesforce for my company in San Jose, and we were using them for service. And they go, "How are you using Salesforce for service? Did you see the name? The name is Salesforce. If it was Serviceforce, you could," I said, "just because the name is Salesforce doesn't mean it doesn't do service," right? Well, we're getting into that in a lot of different ways. We've got marketing products now. We've got all these other things, and it's the name is actually a problem, but it's well enough known that you can't change the name now. You can't change the ticker symbol. We thought we would just go to force.com, and that doesn't work either. And so basically what we're seeing is we've got to raise the game above being a CRM company and become a customer company. And in fact, that's where we're finding a lot of success, and it's basically empowering you to connect with your customers, your suppliers, your partners, anybody that does business with you, and be able to communicate with them and connect with them and share data with them and do the work that you need to do with them. And in fact, if you look at cloud computing, that's really the key benefit that you have with cloud computing. Because as soon as you go to talk to somebody else outside of your company, you're going through the firewall, baby. You're going through that firewall. So you might as well have it out in the cloud. Because even if it was behind your firewall, you're going to punch a big hole in your firewall to get to this application. So it actually is easier to sell the idea that we're about communicating and connecting people with customers and creating communities. And as you see, big data is one of the next big things that people are talking about. And everybody has their own view of that. But basically what we're seeing as a company is that people are putting more and more and more data on Salesforce. Post Office of Japan is one of our customers. The population of Japan is about 120 million. Their contact database is 150 million people. Well, they've got some duplicate data and some people that are no longer with us in that data set, right? So in some cases, there are reasons that big data is big. It's because if you don't clean the data, it gets big, right? But it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, we're seeing demands for not just 150 million records, we're seeing demand for billions of records. How do we get billions and billions of pieces of data managed and still give you quarter of a second response time? So the questions that we're kind of asking the industry right now, what we're asking our customers is, how do you market to your customers? How do you market to your customers when they're everywhere? You can't just find them in one place anymore. They're everywhere, all over the world, all over the web. How do you sell as a team to your customers, with your partners? Because sales is not just one person going in there alone now. You've got to sell as a team. So how are you selling as a team? And how do you service the customers when they're everywhere? Your customer service desk has to be follow the sun, because your customers are all over the world. Even if you're selling primarily, we were selling primarily in the United States, but the companies we sell to have offices in China, in Japan, in Europe. And so the users are all over the world. So you've got to be able to service your customers when they're everywhere And how do you create a platform that connects everything together? It's got to be integrated. You can't have silos anymore. That's the old days. When you have a cloud computing solution, you need everything to be available from that one user experience. And finally, how do you transform the way you work? We introduced a product a few years ago called Chatter, and I thought it was silly. I really did. I thought, my God, what are we doing putting Facebook in the enterprise? Are you kidding me? I mean, I've already got enough email, right? I don't want another email box to deal with. But the reality is, once you start using a social product, especially if you can do work in the feed and not just read stuff in the feed, and if it's organized and if it's connected, you can immediately, I can be called into a business situation about a company that I've never heard of that we've been doing business with for 5 years. Immediately go to that record and look at the conversation that's happened over the last 3 years between the sales team and the service team and the customer success team, and see everything that happened, all the conversations, all the meetings that happened, everything that, if you try to do that with email, I wasn't copied on those emails 3 years ago, right? So you change the way you work. You don't do it now in email. You do it connected with these records, and all of a sudden, there's a record that you can go back to and reference in the past, and you can bring new team members and get them up to speed. So we're transforming the way you do work. And that works really well on a mobile device too. A feed is a really good thing for a mobile device. And so to become a customer company, you really have to connect all of this together. You have to connect your customers and your employees and your partners and your products even. I mean, products are beginning to talk. If you're in a wafer fab and you've got a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, that piece of equipment is probably calling home on a regular basis saying what it's doing. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could actually go to a customer record, look on that record and find out what equipment they have, and check the health of that piece of equipment in real time now from a mobile device, right? That's all possible because all of these things are connected. And that's as much of a commercial as I'm going to give you today. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much for the great presentation.